Good morning, everybody. How are y'all doing today? It's a Monday here in Minnesota. Today we're going to talk about the singers at Bethlehem Records. First, I want to address something real quick. Someone who left the channel a few months ago and didn't like some of the things I had to say, and I feel it takes me out of context all the time. He returned under a different name, created a new account, just so he could kind of troll some of my videos, and I know it's him right away. You know, it's the same content. Someone doesn't come to the channel right away and start making out complaints, especially not as exactly the same as this last guy's complaints were. It's a little frustrating. You know, not everyone's going to like everything you have to say all the time, but don't watch it if you don't like what I have to say, you know. You can't change the facts. You know, jazz is an art form that's linked directly to your emotion, to your emotional thermostat. And you can't help but emote as you improvise from your own experience. And just because he's a white musician from Europe, he feels like I'm disparaging him on some level. And I've never said white cats can't play. I've never said it. In fact, I've said many white cats could play better because they had more training, better equipment, better studios. It was never a thing I've ever said. Black guys play often from a different emotional perspective because of their experience here in America. Until you've walked a day in those shoes, I really think you should keep your trolling and your butthurt comments. You can be a great player, but you can only emote from your experience, which is silver spoon, especially in comparison to the Black American experience for the majority of black players throughout the 20th century. That's all I want to say on it, but I just don't understand how people can be so preoccupied with what I have to say. If you don't like it, why are you still watching? Why are you coming back under a different name? Take a break, dude. We don't need you. Today I'm going to talk about the Bethlehem Singers, and it's a very big body of work. But I will go so far as to say it's a guaranteed body of work. If you want great jazz vocal, Bethlehem is really a great place to go. They do so many great records with a lot of very anonymous singers, at least to today's collector and vinyl community. Most of these names aren't going to be very well known. There are a few giants, the Chris Connors, the Nina Simones, the Mel Tormeys, the Johnny Hartmans. But aside from those 4 or 5 maybe pretty big names, a lot of these names have slipped into obscurity. But this goes true for Storyville and other small labels like this. Dawn has a couple. When you're a small label, your chances of you making a good vocal jazz record are much higher. You're probably only going to hire a small backing trio, piano, bass, and drums. You're not going to put big symphonic orchestral productions on top of something. You're going to keep it fairly basic. And for me, stripped down jazz vocal with a basic arrangement often gives the singer the most room to express and emote. And there's 2 facets to jazz singing. There's some jazz singers like an Ella Fitzgerald who will alternate the harmony and bend the notes and sing and perform almost like a horn player. And she is so incredible at doing what she does. But that's not what every singer is capable of doing or does. And for me, the other great chapter of jazz vocalists is the small combo jazz vocals. And those groups often have some great soloists in them, or like a guest trumpet or 2 on a track, or a lone sax player. And so you'll often get great jazz on those records that's beautiful, lyrical, melodic, haunting, full of soul integrity, even if the singer may not be a quote-unquote horn-playing style of singer. And then those same singers often put on a big label those bigger productions, those bigger arrangements, those big orchestral settings limit A, their capacity to be much of a jazz singer, and B, you're not going to get a lot of great jazz playing or improvising on something that's very produced and arranged. So small label, small setting jazz vocalists, those records are almost always going to be great. And I would encourage people to keep their eye open for vocal records on labels that you may not even know. But if it's a small label and it's a small little vocal group, chances are that record's going to be outstanding. So the Bethlehem jazz vocal story starts with primarily and most importantly Chris Connor. Chris Connor was a part of the Stan Kenton group for a while in the late 40s, early 50s. She comes to Bethlehem in New York, and it kind of takes the direction of Bethlehem and pushes it into a jazz label. And before this, they were trying different things, kind of pop, R&B, sugar, doo-woppy things, trying a lot of different things, piano stuff, but not necessarily jazz piano, just different things. And it was Gus Wilde and Creed Taylor, when they hit gold with Chris Connor, it solidifies the path that Bethlehem's about to embark on. This is their first 10-inch, and before this it was all pretty much just 45s. But she was born Marie Jean, or Mary Jean, I'm not sure, Lutzenheiser, which sounds German, so Marie Jean or Jean Lutzenheiser, and Chris Connor was a good choice. Good choice of a new name. But this is Bethlehem 1001, the first 10-inch on the Bethlehem label. Fantastic small group arrangements. If I recall, this was the Ellis Larkins trio, who excuse me, who's a guy I've been digging into lately. He's a black pianist from Baltimore, if I recall, who doesn't get a lot of recognition today, but he leads some great sessions as a backing guy behind singers, and there's a couple great records on his own at Storyville. I'm a big fan of Ellis Larkins at this point. Again, great early Bethlehem 10-inch. And then they follow that up right away with a second Chris Connor, this time with the Vinnie Burke trio. Vinnie Burke's a great bass player who makes a couple cool records of his own at ABC and makes a 10-inch of his own at Bethlehem. He's a great player that doesn't get a lot of exposure again in today's market. You gotta love Vinnie Burke. He's worth checking out. But again, this is a nice small little trio setting. I'm trying to remember who the drummer and the piano player were. I know it, but I can't recall right now. But this is Sings Lullaby for Lovers, and these two get reissued by Bethlehem in several different phases, you'll see. Also in the 10-inch series, Carmen McRae, a great kind of gospel-inflected, vibrato-heavy singer. Carmen McRae, 1023, You'd Be So Easy to Love, So Easy to Idolize, All Is Above, So Worth the Yearning For, So Swell. Just a nice little set of lips. Great Burt Goldblatt artwork, once again on Bethlehem, of course. Then this is Helen Carr, and Helen Carr's a soft singer. She's a little white gal. She's not trying to control any song she's on. She's very minimal and kind of mousy, but actually she works really well with the songs that she chooses. So she's not going to be this powerful singer like an Ella. She's going to be much more minimalist and carefully choose her limited notes. And it's a cool setting. She plays often with Max Bennett and those great California West Coast Bethlehem guys. She'll sing on a track or two on some of those guys' records. And boy, she's just a treat. That's down in the depths of the 90th floor. Great cover. And then the last 10-inch of female vocal is one of the last ones, 1036, Lost in Love, by the great Paula Castle. And I love this 10-inch. Another great Burt Goldblatt cover. But this is a tough record to come by. They go to 1039. This is 1036, and there is no 1037 or 1038. So this is the second last 10-inch in the Bethlehem roll before they move over to the LP, which what we're listening to right now is the first LP by Chris Connor as a full length. This is B20. And the first 10 Bethlehems in the B series are recouplings of 10-inch records on an LP. So this is like the 10th actual record they did. This has Kai Winding, J.J. Johnson, Ralph Sharon, Herbie Mann, Joe Puma, O.C. Johnson, and Milt Hinton. So a great group behind her. And again, it's what we're listening to. Stuff definitely worth seeking out. I'm a big fan of her work at the Bethlehem label. She does move on to Atlantic and make some really important recordings there. And they had a falling out, Bethlehem and her, in terms of money. And how often does that happen in the music business? And of course, Bethlehem couldn't really meet her demands. And so she went to Atlantic. And it kind of really put Bethlehem in a bit of a tailspin. And they eventually kind of bring a whole bunch of new singers in to try to fill that gap. Nina Simone probably does the best job of that. But she's still rather unknown at this point as well. So Francis Faye comes along, B23. I got a cool Burt Goldblatt cover. She's a great little singer. She has a lot of West Coast stuff, some stuff on G&P, Gene Norman Presents, which a lot of stuff on that label seems to be live, because he was a great concert promoter, and so I think that's how he got access to recording a lot of people. This orchestra was conducted by Russ Garcia, and Russ Garcia often has some of the best the West Coast has to offer. Here he's got Herbie Harper, the great trombone player, Jerry Wiggins is on the piano, Al Hendrickson on guitar, Red Mitchell's on the bass, and Chico Hamilton's on the drums. So again, a great lineup, a great group right there. One of my favorite records in Bethlehem is this Why Do I Love You, Helen Carr. And again, that's the same as the Down in the Depths 90th Floor 10-inch. This is their second length. This is not the same material. It's all new material. Another great lineup on this one. Red Mitchell, Cappy Lewis, and Howard Roberts is on the guitar. The version of here of Summer Night is fantastic. A song I played a lot of my sets. Why Do I Love You is great. Got a Date with an Angel. I Got a Feeling, You're Fooling. You're Getting to Be a Habit with Me. A lot of these songs are just fantastic. Light, prep, full of pep, you know. But again, she's a minimalist in approach, not one of those big, controlling the session singers. This is Terry Morrell, Songs of a Woman in Love. Another cool cover by Goldblatt. And this one's got Ralph Sharon, the British piano player, with Jay Cave, Christy Febo on the drums, and Herbie Manns on the flute. Again, this is a wonderful record. Pretty tough to come by. I've seen this in thrift stores and pawn shops. And the thing about those stores is sometimes you'll see a record for $5 in that setting, and sometimes you go in there and it'll be $800. There's such a range at what some pawn shops seem to charge. I think some pawn shops see jazz or records as just a small part of their business. Others try to really capitalize on the popularity of the vinyl LP right now. I love this record, Peggy Connolly. This is very much a hipster session. I believe it's also a Russ Garcia-backed group, yeah, with the Wigville Band. And check out who the Wigville Band is. Pete Candoli, Stu Williamson, Al Hendrickson, Max Bennett, Stan Levy, Jimmy Joffrey, Rush Cheever, Bill Holman, Charlie Mariano, and Russ Garcia. Like, that's West Coast royalty. It just really is. And the great cover. And this is, like I said, Vespa scooting music. It's fun. It's light. Some of the white gals don't try to be Billie Holiday. They don't try to be provocative and deep and filled with somber messages. Some of them just recognize that, you know what? My role here is just to be fun and spry. And I think she really does a great job on this record. And again, the band is so outstanding that when Russ Garcia is driving a session, I'll just tell you right now, that's a record worth having. Russ Garcia stuff, he doesn't have a big body of work. I've looked it up. And a lot of it's at Bethlehem. He has a couple titles under his own name there, and even some of that's been repackaged of the same material. And he leads some of the other groups and arranges for them. I just really enjoy his work. He's got kind of a modern, hip approach to arrangement. And I've always really enjoyed his sessions. This is a Chris Connor record, B56, and it's a compilation. It has some stuff from those first 2 10-inches, some stuff from that first LP, and then there's also some stuff in here with a guy by the name of Cy Oliver. And I try to figure out where the Cy Oliver and his orchestra stuff comes from. But I haven't been able to figure it out yet because it's not from a Bethlehem session that I know, unless it's some early 45s. And I didn't spend too much time looking. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. But like I said, Vinnie Burke's the one, the other group we mentioned, and then of course Ellis Larkins was the first 10-inch. So where the Cy Oliver tracks are coming from, I'm not sure. But again, that's a nice collection, B56, worth seeking out. And the Chris Connor stuff, surprisingly, you'll find for not that much. And that's true for some of these. The Francis Faye records don't go for big money, and they're great. This is Relaxing with Francis Faye. Another interesting Burt Goldblatt cover there. And look at the group on this one. Herbie Mann, Alan Eager, Don Light, Nick Travis, Sal Salvador, Oscar Pettiford, Shadow Wilson, to name a few. So, just great bands behind these gals at Bethlehem. And those bands ensure you that the records are going to be worthwhile. You get a vocal record at RCA or at a Capitol, it's going to say conducted and arranged by so-and-so, and that's what's going to be the dominant force. So again, vocal jazz on small labels is really the way to go. Take the A Train by Betty Roche, fantastic singer who worked with Ellington. She was a preeminent member of his group in the late 40s, if I recall, was the initial singer on Take the A Train. However, because of the recording ban, she didn't get to actually be on that initial recording and Take the A Train. Then Ellington re-recorded the song, I believe on the Ellington Uptown record, and brought her back to sing it. And then Bethlehem brings her in to do this great session where she does take the A Train on the air as well. And again, the group on this is fantastic. Eddie Costa, one of my favorite piano players and vibists. Conti Condoli on the trumpet. Don Trenner on the piano. Whitey Mitchell's on the bass. And Davey Williams is on the drums. She also goes on to making 2 great records at Prestige, which are also really worth seeking out. They can have a wide range in what they charge. Sometimes I'll see them for 20 or 30 bucks. Other times I'll see them for 200. So I think it just depends on the seller. My favorite sellers are sellers who are rock and roll guys. If I go to your page on Discogs and you got a picture of Alice Cooper or Kiss, I want to see what you got for jazz because you probably don't give a fuck about it. But if you've got John Coltrane as your photograph, I'm like, your records are jazz records aren't going to be cheap. So that photograph can often give you some real insight as to what you're doing. You know, a guy that doesn't love jazz is who you want to buy jazz from. He just wants to move that stuff. He's not looking to get top dollar for everything. Charlie Shavers, who I'm a big fan of, I've talked about many times, one of the great forgotten trumpet players of the 40s and 50s and of the 60s. One of the most beautiful lyrical channels the energy and light of Armstrong. Super dexterous, has the clarity and vivacity of a Clifford Brown, maybe not quite the aggressiveness of Clifford Brown. He seems more of a happy, laid-back, content fellow, but he's able to do some incredibly fast, dexterous things that I think even Dizzy and Clifford would be like, damn. He does some double and triple time things at times where he's like, all of a sudden he'll add this flurry of notes, but it's always centered on melody and has this rhythmic preciseness to it that makes Charlie Shavers unbelievable. And Maxine Sullivan, of course, sings on this, who they had a bit of a working relationship for a little while in the 50s. And Maxine Sullivan, if you remember a few months ago, I did an episode on her talking about her records at Period for Leonard Feather. She was one of the real early singers of the jazz form in the 30s, influenced people like Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald, and yet she's really slipped into obscurity. People don't talk about Maxine Sullivan at all. So this is a record here, Charlie Shavers with Maxine Sullivan, that you can find this in a record store or even on Discogs for 10 bucks, and it's outstanding. Great stuff. One of my favorite records on Bethlehem is Moody by Marilyn Moore. And I might get these details confused, but if I recall, she was married to Al Cohn, and Al Cohn had a working relationship with Billie Holiday, and Billie Holiday actually babysat their child at times if I remember that correctly. I know that they were working with Billie Holiday and had a personal relationship with Billie. She actually sings remarkably like Billie Holiday. Languid, filled with kind of a sorrow. It doesn't sound like she's being an imposter, though, or being fake about it. It's just, boy, she really can do it, though. It's you'd be easy to mistake her for Billie Holiday. This record's filled with very, like I said, languid, sorrow-filled, filled with expression. The band on here is Don Abney, Al Cohn, Joe Wilder, Barry Galbraith, Milt Hinton, and O.C. Johnson. That's just an all-star affair. And again, I'll play a little bit of this one as well. She, like I said, can really sound like Billie Holiday at times.
But life is milk and
She's got that kind of bit of drawl, twang. The Baltimore drawl or something. I don't know. She's great, though. This record's pretty tough to come by. It's near the end of the B series, B73. And I've seen this one for rarely under $100. Maybe 50, 60 for kind of a beat-up copy. Great record, though. Al Cohn, you have Wilder, you got Galbraith, Hinton, and O.C. Johnson. It's just fantastic. And you will play this, and people will think you're playing Billie. You know, which is kind of cool. Yup. All about that. And this is Jerry Winter. And one of the popular, bit more schlocky records on this label with the Al Boletto Sextet. Al Boletto, Fred Crane, Jimmy Gunn, Willie Thomas, Kenny O'Brien. Ray Brown's on bass on some of it with Louis Marino on the drums. I actually haven't listened to this one as much, so I can't give you too much information on it. It was a tough record to come by. And like I said, I remember she sings a bit more like a white prom queen than some of the other gals on this. And that leads us to the 6000 series, which Bethlehem kind of changes at this point. From my understanding, there was an influx of money coming over from King Records, and it changes the artists, changes the production. The Chris Connor gets reissued right away, and again, this is another version of those first two 10 inches that now that King's part of the business model, they want to promote that because they knew that was successful. Not long after that was Bethlehem's Girlfriends, which has Julie London, the fantastic Julie London, with Carmen McRae and Chris Connor. I think this stuff is from the 10-inch of hers. And the Julie London stuff, I think, was recorded early on 45 for the label, but I'm not even positive on that. I don't remember where the Julie London stuff comes from, but you gotta love Julie London. She makes a lot of her name, of course, at Liberty Records, where she makes a pretty wide spectrum of stuff. And if you want to know the best Julie London stuff, it's stuff with Jimmy Rawls and his orchestra. Those records are outstanding. 6009 is Sally Blair. Great record. A lot of soul in her voice. She sings. And again, you're going to see the bands are going to be different here now. This has Frank Lapinto, Bernie Glow, Frank Socolow, Jerry Shapiro, Irby Green, Frank Rehack, Sanford Gold, Milt Hinton, Sal Salvador. So some of these guys are Bethlehem guys, but it seems like there's a pretty fast change, and that King is influencing some of the artists that Bethlehem's recording already. And of course, by later in this series, it pretty much is just a King enterprise at that point. But it feels like it's a bit of a mutual thing here for the first parts of the 6000 series. The voice of Audrey Morris, another great white gal who's kind of forgotten. Some of these gals are so obscure they don't even have wiki pages, so I can't even look up stuff. Marty Page is the conductor on this one. Stu Williamson, Bill Pittman, Joe Mondragon, and Irv Kotler. So you got pretty much a West Coast little arrangement going on there. Another great session. Who's that autograph there? Gustav Willie, President of Bethlehem Music Corporation. Huh, cool. So definitely Wilde's still part of the deal at this point. Get a signature on the back on that one. Here's Nina Simone. Her first record is 6028. probably 1957 or 58. And Bethlehem's shelf life is short. Those first 10 inches are 53, 54. There's a volume of material in 55, 56 on the LP era. And by 57, 58, it's thinning out dramatically. And by 60, the only thing that's coming out is King, who now controls it completely. Gus Wilde's out of the picture. And this is towards the end of Gus Wilde's reign there. She was supposed to be the real revivalist. And her records did sell pretty well for Bethlehem, which that's a great thing. But didn't save the label. This was followed up by Nina Simone and her friends' intimate variety of vocal charm, taken from the same photo shoot, obviously in Central Park, one of the great urban parks in the world. And Nina Simone's an interesting singer. She doesn't have a normal tone. The black on the back of that's very different. Carmen McRae's on some of this, Chris Connor's on some of this, and Nina Simone. And so I'm guessing almost all that stuff is repackaged stuff. None of that's new material there whatsoever. And then Betty Blake sings In a Tender Mood. This is an outstanding record. 60-58, so this is well after Gus Wilde's gone. King is obviously in charge. And if you listen to the band on this, you'll see clearly how different this band is. Zoot Sims, Roland Alexander, Marcus Belgrave, Teddy Charles, Kenny Burrell, Mal Waldron, Addison Farmer, Eustace Gilliam, Ed Shaughnessy, and Charlie Persip. So it's just an outstanding lineup of modern players, very different from what was on Bethlehem 53 to 56. This is a whole different setup at this point, and like I said, Bethlehem's in different hands by this point. It's pretty much King just packaging jazz stuff and putting it on the Bethlehem imprint, because Bethlehem had a pretty good jazz reputation, especially in the white hipster college crowd. And King has so many different facets to what they were doing. So anything jazz related, they just put it on Bethlehem. And it's a bit of an imposter, but that's the way it is. And that wraps up the females. We're going to jump into the guys real quick here as well. So somewhere between Mel Tormey and Tony Bennett, you have a great singer by the name of Joe DeRise. And it's a tough cover to make out. It's just him sitting at a piano. Another wonderful Burt Goldblatt, monotone. He's got a soft voice. It doesn't have the big, boisterous Tony Bennett, but he's not as sugary as Mel Tormey. Somewhere in the middle there. DeRise makes two albums as a singer at Bethlehem. They're both pretty tough to find, and they're both must grabs if you see them. He's just sitting here playing piano, accompanying himself and singing. It's beautiful. And the Italians definitely have a romantic leaning to what they do that I just cherish it. I think it's fantastic. Bobby Troup makes a number of records at Bethlehem. He does play some piano as well, if memory serves. He's a Hollywood guy. Yeah, piano and vocals with Bob Evenson, Howard Roberts, Red Mitchell, and Don Heath. So another West Coast adventure here. Another fantastic Burt Goldblatt album cover. If I recall, Bobby Troup was a Hollywood actor and was married to Julie London, if memory serves. They even were on Emergency together, if I remember correctly. He's a nice singer, you know, but he's definitely more in the poppier vein of things. And the musicians he chose obviously were meant to be just nice color for him. So we're going to jump right in onto the B series here. This is the first Bethlehem 12-inch LP, is B11. Because remember, the first 10 were just couplings of 10 inches. And B11 is Bob Doro, Devil May Care. Love, love, love this record. It may not be for everyone because it's filled with jazz singing. And he sings very much in a instrument kind of way, where he will improvise and play parts with his mouth and bend notes and inflect things that the average person isn't capable of, you know. I love it. It's so hipster. It's so soaked in caffeine and hypnosis, and it makes you want to have a beret and a scooter and just sit on some sidewalk in New York and Tribeca and just be posh and cool. People who may be most familiar with Bob Doro through the Miles Davis record that he appears on briefly, where he sings a little bit of kind of scatty, vocal inflected stuff at the end of, well, I gotta think of what record that is now. It's Nothing Like You at the end of Sorcerer. He does those great little vocal things. That's the first time I heard Bob Doro. And it didn't even really connect it when I saw this. I just liked the cover. It was collecting Bethlehem. And it wasn't until later where I pieced together that, oh, that's the guy on that Miles record. Cool. But I just adore this record. It's fun. It's up-tempo. The band is spry and filled with life. And he has a lot of color. You know, Bill Takis on the bass, Jerry Segal on the drums, Jack Hitchcock, Warren Fitzgerald, and Bob Doro, piano, vocal, and leader. And it's definitely very much arranged by him as a DJ sample promo copy. This record can go up for $100 nowadays. If you see it for less than that, boy, grab it. It's just one of the funnest records you'll own. And I never put it on and don't enjoy it. And at the end of the day, that's what music's supposed to be, is enjoyable, you know? And whatever you're into, that's great. And I think people sometimes unfairly say that I don't like the avant-garde. I love a lot of avant-garde. I just think you should be expected to love it. That's not the expectation here. And so many people seem to get that message that, oh, that's all jazz is. If you don't like that stuff, you don't like jazz. That's incorrect. There's a lot of jazz you can like and not have to like the avant-garde. And the avant-garde for everybody should be something once in a while when I'm in the mood for. Not every day. I don't like any of that poppy shit. I just like the auto-tune. That's not, I've never said I don't like avant-garde. There's a lot of avant-garde I love. But Don Elliott, who is a crazy player, he plays the vibes, he plays the trumpet, he plays the vibraphone, piano, he plays French horn, if I remember, other horns as well. He's a very talented multi-instrumentalist who makes some great records at ABC. He has some stuff at Savoy. His work at Bethlehem is outstanding as well. This one here has him singing. He has other records where he's playing instruments mostly. Some great selections here. It doesn't list right off the top here who's playing behind him here. But this is BCP 15. And another one of those records that you can find for $15 or $100. Depends on the store and how knowledgeable the jazz guy who's selling it is. Bobby Troop, the aforementioned, is another record of his here on Bethlehem, BCP 19. Then Mel Tormey. This is his first introduction on Bethlehem. I don't think it's his first recording, if I recall, but it's his first on Bethlehem. It's probably his first real bit of successful, great cover there, by the way. It's a Blue World, another Burt Goldblatt, beautiful cover. This Bethlehem in this moment was a fairly popular label. They certainly aren't remembered in a just sense. We don't really recognize how important they were. Post crowd, Bethlehem definitely had a pretty good following, and this record I think did fairly well. And its orchestra was conducted by an Al Pellegrini. It's another Italian. It doesn't list any of the musicians. It's Mel. He's soft. He's saccharine. He tastes like sugarcane. I enjoy this, and it's a great introduction to Mel Tormey. And as King starts taking over Bethlehem and the artists start to change, Mel Tormey is one of the few people that really keep and use and utilize heavily up until about 57, where he moves on to Atlantic. Another Bobby Troop record. These are good records. I don't listen to them enough probably, but Howard Roberts, Bob Edelson, and Don Heath, again in Hollywood in 1955 this was recorded. So, not my favorite cover. I'm not sure if that's a Goldblatt or not. I don't think it is a Goldblatt. I got my first pair of reading glasses a couple weeks ago. Not a real fan of that. The whole getting old thing is getting old. Johnny Hartman. Of course, Hartman's from John Coltrane fame. But here, earlier on in 56 probably, he makes this great record at Bethlehem, his first of two. Fantastic song selections here. The great piano, Ralph Sharon, Jay Cave, Christy Febo, and Howard McGee's on the trumpet. And Howard McGee actually is one of the stars of the show here. He just plays some beautiful, lyrical, haunting, muted trumpet, sometimes just soft trumpet. I'm a big Howard McGee fan. And McGee's one of those guys that can play bebop, he can play hard bop, or he can be the most lyrical, softest, warm-toned backer of a singer. McGee has a lot of ability and really is kind of underappreciated. Joe DeRise, we talked about his 10-inch. This is his 12-inch. A great record again. Accompanied by the Australian Jazz Quintet, which was a very popular group that Bethlehem does 5 or 6 records by. Nick Stabulus is on the drums on some of this. Another great session. And the group just plays nice minimal arrangements behind him, and he just really kills it. Mel Tormey with the Marty Peisch Dectet. This is another great Burt Goldblatt with all those cars making up Mel Tormey's face. How you can make a guy's face look that much like him using just automobiles, I am not sure, but he just manages to do it. Marty Peisch, of course, is a great West Coast arranger and part of the whole West Coast scene. And the band here with Pete Condoli, Don Fagerquist, Bob Envelson on trombone, Bob Shank, Bob Cooper, Vinnie DeRosa, Jack DeLong, Albert Pullman, Red Mitchell, Mel Lewis, Jack Montrose. It's incredible. Incredible lineup on that. Probably my favorite Mel Tormey on Bethlehem, if I'm honest. And now we're into the 6000 series for the guys. Another Mel Tormey, and again, sings Fred Astaire. This was a little bit more poppy and saccharine. But again, Marty Peisch, Herb Geller, Jack Montrose, a lot of the same guys. Fantastic stuff. And then here's Hartman's second record at Bethlehem, All of Me, the debonair Mr. Johnny Hartman. Another wonderful, beautiful session. This has Ernie Wilkins group, who Ernie Wilkins is of Count Basie fame and became one of the great preeminent arrangers in jazz in the 50s and into the 60s. He kind of goes away from making records as a player and becomes renowned as a real arranger and a guy you wanted to hire to help you put your sessions together. Frank Hunter's on side 1 with his orchestra, but side 2 is the Ernie Wilkins stuff with Jerome Richardson, Lucky Thompson, Danny Bank, Ernie Royal, Howard McGee, Frank Rehack, Hank Jones, O.C. Johnson, and Milt Hinton, recorded in '56 in November in New York City. So that's outstanding stuff. Hank Jones and Johnny Hartman together alone, you'd pay for that admission any day. Great stuff. More Mel Tormey, the California Suite. This is actually a second cover of this. The first one's just him sitting on a grass lawn, which is actually, that looks like leaves though there. But that's a nice little record as well. And this is Marty Peisch conducting and arranging as well. And you can see that they definitely had, King liked what Mel was doing and liked his sales. And so there's a lot of Mel Tormey here. At the Crescendo, a live recording. This has Marty, Don Fagerquist, Larry Bunker, Max Bennett, and Mel Lewis. A bit of a smaller group. That's a really nice little live recording. Big fan of that one. Songs for Any Taste. Mel Tormey again. And this one might be a compilation. I can't recall. It's 6031. Doesn't list the group on it. And it's not my favorite cover either. Obviously, Burt Goldblatt's long out of the picture at this point. He would never have made that cover. Very dated. And then the last 2 records I want to show you here are 2 fantastic records by Frank Minion. These were 2 of the last records I got in the Bethlehem discography. They're tough to come by. I did find an original of this one. This one is a reissued copy. Unbelievable. Interesting fella. He has a lot of different approaches, from calypso to the blues, from gospel to jazz, from pop to real rural feeling. It's just a real complex approach for him based on the song that he's picking at the time. And I just found him super enjoyable. His personality is ebullient and shines through. And then on this one, on side 2, the band has Bill Evans, Paul Chambers, and Jimmy Cobb in it. And you're saying to yourself, what is going on with that? And he's doing Miles Davis tracks. And this is probably 59, maybe early 60. So as kind of blues coming out, he's redoing flamenco sketches around midnight and So What in a vocal setting where his mouth is playing what Miles is doing. And I'm a little surprised he got the clearance to do it. Maybe he didn't get the clearance to do it. I don't know. That's flamenco sketches, obviously. Frank Minion. Bum, 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 bum. Outstanding. It's such a cool thing. And he's actually multi-tracking his voice at points there too, creating chords with his voice. There's nothing like this. I can't even compare it to anything else. Darling, please come back. This is around midnight, of course. And then So What is next?
For your try to keep you here beside me. Make you think you can refuse.
There's not a lot of information on Frank Minion out there. If I remember, he's a Baltimore guy as well. These two records by him are just outstanding, and they don't really fit in with the canon of regular Bethlehem vocalists. They're very unique and stand on their own. I recommend them highly if you like interesting stuff, and these versions of these Miles Davis tracks alone are worth seeking for this record. So that's the Bethlehem vocalists, and they definitely take a different chapter of the story of Bethlehem as opposed to what they were doing with their West Coast hard driving, modern playing, and there's just a real range on the Bethlehem label, yet it's all really solid stuff. And it's one of my favorite labels, and it's a record that if you see records by this label, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Grab them and shepherd them and bring them home. They need to go to home. These records should all be cherished. They're a rare and brief chapter of the New York story of jazz, and of course they have a big West Coast chapter as part of their story as well. And they really document a lot of cool hip things that were happening in the mid-50s. And Storyville and Dawn are kind of associated to me in terms of the same artist to some degree, the whiter side of things at the time. And they've all kind of slipped into obscurity, these guys. And they are definitely worthy of collecting. There's a high level of integrity to all these sessions. None of it's really saccharine and polished and not jazz. It's all jazz. And that's important. You want to know a label's going to give you a solid jazz foundation no matter what they're showing you. And Bethlehem does that. So I hope you all enjoyed that. The Bethlehem Jazz Singers are just, like I said, some of the best. Go to my Patreon page if you want to help support the channel. Donate as little as $5 a month just to help out, keep the channel going. There's also a great little merchandise store down there. If you want to buy a t-shirt and help support, that's also appreciated. And then I'll probably put links to my 2 Facebook groups as well, the Jazz Vinyl Club and the Blue Note Jazz Group. They're both nice little Facebook groups that have a great community around them, and you can answer a lot of great questions and post your records. And something else I'm thinking about doing down the road here is I want you all to send me pictures of your jazz collection and your record rooms. I think it might make an interesting record episode to see a collection of people's jazz rooms, their music rooms. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace.